is Alex Adriaansens, and I'm director of V2, the Institute for Unstable Media in Rotterdam. Some of you might be familiar with what we do. You might have seen the exhibition we did in 2007 in Mocha here in Taipei. But most of you might be unfamiliar with what we do. You might have looked at the website and got a glimpse of what it is that we do. First of all, I'd like to thank the National Taiwan Museum of Fine Arts for inviting us to be able to present you what we do, because I think it's very important to get a good taste, a good grip of the practice we have, to already feel a little bit at home with the place you might be going. Secondly, of course, we are very glad that this residency program is coming about, because we too, as well as that, are places for development of young talent, and that means we are not looking for young talent just in Holland. We are trying to look for young talent from around the world. And to give you an indication, the people that work in my organization, more than 50% are people coming from different countries around the world. We have people from Russia, sometimes from Japan, South America, France, Spain, Italy. So it's a nice international community of rather young, ambitious people, I would say. They're also interdisciplinary oriented. So the background of the people who work at V2, so not the residencies, but who work at V2, can be from industrial design to visual art to programmers, technical backgrounds, very diverse. So we started about 30 years ago. This is quite a long time ago. And we have been set up, or we started actually as being a young group of artists who all did art schools. But when we left the art schools, we thought that the places where we could present the work we were doing was very little, because we grew up with visual arts or modern art, but we were also very much in popular culture. So we were also making cinema, we were making pop music, we have been growing up with television, radio, so media were already quite present in our experience in the world. So from that, we thought we're going to start an organization, in this case called V2, in which we can reflect this, how do you call it, bridging between high culture and low culture and dealing with media. When we started, there were no digital media. It was just media in general. If you look at V2, there is a few legs, you could say, that form the organization. One is the lab. The lab is the place for research and production. That's where most of you will end up, because that's the place where you work in teams, on projects. That's the place where the residencies are coming about. But if you have a residence at V2, you will also be involved in presentation, because any artist who works at V2, we ask them to take part in a public presentation of the research that they have been doing. Because one of the difficult things within an organization like V2 is, if you're looking at research, is how to present research. Because for a normal audience, research is a very abstract area. It's very specific, of course, and very hard to understand what it is. So we think it's very important to communicate research and look for the right format of how to communicate it to the outside world. So we're going to, how do you call that, drag you into our programs and guide you in doing a presentation about your research, and encounter comparable young artists or designers or architects that visit our space to exchange knowledge, because there's many students coming to V2, or young artists or designers that just left their education, to network there, to have a look what research is done, what are the themes and topics that are in the mind of young, how do you call that, contemporary, young, talented, creative people. Then we have the DEAF Festival that just happened, just closed. It's a biannual, so you won't be able to see it next year. It's only the year after. Then we have the publications. Publications are a way to communicate to the outside, of course, what we produce, what we do, what we research, and to also bring about the themes, the topics. So what drives an organization like V2 or SAT in general? So how does it relate to contemporary, I would say, practices and contemporary society with contemporary problems? And last, we have the agency. The agency is a kind of a distribution service in which we try to distribute the works that have been produced in the different labs in Europe and around the world. So, if you look at research, we have three main topics. One is wearable technology. It's a very broad field, so we try to define the research topics broadly to have enough opening for youngsters to come in. The second research territory or domain is called ecology. I'll explain you a little bit later on what we mean with ecology. And the third one is called augmented reality, with whom you might be more familiar. So if you look at the wearable technologies that we are involved in, this is a research domain that looks at how wearable technology changes our social and cultural relations, like the mobile devices that we have, the way we inform ourselves when we are in the city or when we communicate with each other. These devices have become more and more dominant in the way we experience the world, you could say. It looks at the development of smart cities as well. We talk about smart cities, but what are smart cities? How do we communicate in smart cities? What kind of things are happening in smart cities? What kind of critique can we have also in smart cities? We look at how artistic practices and experiences change when applying wearable technology. And we look at new performative materials that are related to the wearable technology. So there's a lot of new materials developed in the industry nowadays that have a kind of memory, or that can respond to things in their environment. That can be heat, it can be wind, but it can be other people that are around you as well. And the project that you see here, for example, is a project about that. This is a research project we have been doing with a group of designers and fashion designers, in which we try to, how do you call that, deal or look at fashion in relation to technology. So how is fashion changing by the influence of technology? There's now many conductive materials, that means materials that can conduct electricity or signals coming from the outside. And there's new materials that can indeed change their quality depending on external factors. In this case, you see it's kind of a foil, and the foil can become transparent, can become white, or can become black, actually. And depending on the distance of the person that wears this dress and the person in front of her. So this issue, it looks like a very sexy dress, and that's the topic, but that's not the topic. The topic is privacy, because privacy is a big topic in society in general. And in this case, it means that if you come close to this person, you invade her privacy because the dress becomes transparent. So this one is called the Sentient City Survival Kit by Mark Shepard. And it reflects a society or a city in which we are, how do we call it, overthrown almost by media technology. Everything we do in a city is monitored, it's surveilled, we communicate there. There's CCTV cameras. So it's an environment where we are non-stop monitored, you could say. And this, what you see here is design. These are kind of strategic underwear, and the cups you see there are a way to communicate between, how do you call that, people who have these cups. They can send information from one cup to the other. This underwear has vibrators, and it tells you when you are coming close to a scanning device, for example. So you know, hey, here's a scanning device, so you can take another route, you can take a different route in the city if you don't want to be under surveillance all the time. So these are critical projects reflecting more or less the contemporary developments in society. This one is also a critical project. It's by a Dutch artist, and this is about facial recognition systems that we see more and more on the airports. We know it, of course, but they're getting everywhere, also online. And in this case, he made a very nice, how do you call it, more heuristic approach. It means he made a database of thousands of people, famous and infamous people. And if you stand in front of the mirror, it takes a photograph of you and it compares your face, your, how do you call it, characteristics with the faces it has in the database, and it takes out the person that's most likely to you. And it shows you more or less that all these systems can make mistakes. And these systems have some kind of ambivalence in themselves. The other research domain that I mentioned is augmented reality. And augmented reality, of course, is a very big topic, because it focuses on how network media serve information actually from all sorts around us that we can't see, but that we can visualize, or through mobile phones, or through an iPad, or simply, in this case, through goggles. So I'll show you very shortly a few projects. This is a very nice artistic project. This is from Julian Oliver. The left side is a project where he developed glasses that if you walk through the city, the billboards that are normally commercial advertisements are replaced by artworks that you can choose. So it creates a curated exhibition in public space by using the billboards. Takes over the billboards and put new content on it, but only you can see it. So no other people can see it, only if you have or a mobile device or glasses to do it. So here you can see they're looking through this device, they're looking at the billboards, and you can see contemporary artistic works. So, don't need sound. So you can see how it works. And it means you can make any curated exhibition. Anybody can make their own curated exhibition, and you can show works that you think are interesting of contemporary artists. He has been sued several times already by companies who have these billboards, but they can't sue him really because it's private content. You only can see it, and it's not public content. And on the right one you can see it's a very simple cube, this can be anything, and it has markers on it. And if you look with your phone through that device, you see an animation or a kind of a game in that box. But in principle, it's just an empty box. It's just a mapping of a video on it. So in the lab, we have been working on the goggles for this augmented reality. The third topic that I mentioned was ecologies. Ecologies is, in principle, a concept coming from biology, as you know. It's a concept from biology that researches the dynamics and interactions and relations between organisms, populations, and communities. It researches our deepened interest in how individual objects and beings and things tend to connect to each other. So humans tend to connect to each other, plants tend to connect to each other, humans and plants tend to connect to each other. If you have a pet, you tend to connect to your pet. And all these connections that are happening create networks, and these networks shape our world more or less. If you look outside in the world, if you go into nature, you might wonder why is there so much biodiversity? It's just systems that are interacting all the time with each other. But it's a very nice model in understanding what interaction in general might mean, because we mostly talk about interaction in a technological sense if we talk about media, but we hardly understand what it means in a biological sense. So it's a very interesting topic to look at. It's about thinking about the environment. So there's a new awareness of environment that we have, which is reflected in ecologies. It might be about social ecologies, about social relations. How are they shaped? How can you, as a designer, shape these kind of relations? Going very fast now, time's coming up. Ecologies is another one. This is a crowdfunded project. It's an open source project by a group of designers, electrical engineers, artists, working together globally on cleaning up the oceans from oil spill or plastics. It's open source. All the technology or all the knowledge they gain is available online. There's been communities in Japan, in Europe, North America, South America, who all work on this project. It's a crowdfunded project. It means that the money comes from people around the world that think this is an interesting project, I'm going to spend some money for it. It can be $1, it can be $1,000. They get something back for that, for documentation or whatever, but it's a social kind of entrepreneurship, you could say, that's carried by a community, a global community that has an interest in, for example, in this case, cleaning up the oceans. So, the different sorts of residencies, because now I'm getting almost to my time. There are different sorts of residencies. We have the individual residencies, very much focused often on productions, related to productions, and we have the summer residencies. The summer residencies are short-term residencies where you work very specifically on a described outcome. So you know what you would like to do. You get a special project leader on top of you who will guide you, talk with you every now and then, let's say every 2 days. You do presentations to the other residencies which are there. You work in a team. You start to develop your project, redirect it, because you will learn a lot in this period and get to an outcome. These outcomes are presented in the public setting. That makes it also interesting to push you to get to a point where you can say, okay, that's the end of the project. They are presented in what we call test labs. This is the outcome of one of the shorter residencies, the summer residencies. It's by Anouk Wipprecht. She's a fashion designer actually, and she was designing dresses where you can, what do you call it, insert ink into, so the dress changes all the time when you wear it because of the ink that's flowing through it. She became very famous actually because after she did the residency at V2, she was discovered by the stylist of Lady Gaga, and then she ended up with the Black Eyed Peas, making the dress a 30-year during the Super Bowl in the USA. So, my time's up. There's still a lot more that I could show you. I would say if you have a certain interest, if you want to know more, just contact me. Look at the website. All this is on the website. The video material in English text, so you can read it very easily. And it gives you a good feeling of what it is. Look at the summer residencies or the residency programs in general. Thank you very much.